First, our moderator, Andrew Wallenstein. Tom Ascheim, president of ABC Family. Susanne Daniels, president of MTV Programming. Keith Richman, president of Defy Media. And please welcome back Dounia Turrill.
Thank you. The natural place to start is where we just left off with these numbers. I'm sure that you've seen numbers like this, whether they've come from Nielsen or other sources. And so really the most basic question is as you guys go about doing what you do, programming for the millennials that are your audience, I'm just curious how mindful you are of statistics like this. Tom?
We have a daily quiz at our office to make sure that everybody is mindful. It is. It's hard.
It's Disney.
Yeah. It's true. I think we're really mindful of the behavior probably more than the statistics. And as the slides, I think, very eloquently put forth, but I think as we all observe. Cool. You know, the audience likes to share, right? It's what they do constantly. And so all of the mobile, all of the talking, all of the ways to engage with their media is part of how we get our marketing out. It's how they engage with our content. It's how they engage with everybody's content here. It's a very important part of how we spend time with them. So yeah, it feels normal.
Susanne?
Going down the road?
Why not?
Yeah, we think a lot about the numbers. We look at the statistics. We work closely with our research department, and we think.
Do you have a test?
We don't have a test,
Okay.
but now I might start one.
Good.
And it inspires us sometimes. It inspires us to think differently about programming. An example of that would be in a research presentation about a year ago, our research department talked to us about how millennials were a significant part of the audience of shows like CSI. And I had always sort of thought of those shows, I think because they run on CBS, as older shows. And I thought that was interesting, and there was a fair percentage of millennials watching them and really enjoying them. So we set out to say, okay, what's MTV's answer to that type of show? And then this January, we're launching a new show called Eye Candy, starring Victoria Justice, which has an NYPD crime unit, and again, is an attempt to capture that audience, which we just sort of discovered through research. So I find it helpful.
Okay.
I think, you know, we're primarily a digital platform, so we reach a lot of people through the mobile, the internet, and through tablets and phones, but we're mindful of the research, and so we actually go the other way, in which we've been spending a lot of time, and we really rebuilt our whole technology infrastructure to create ways to program to televisions more effectively. And started with launching Roku apps earlier this year, and we launched Xbox for one of our big properties, Break, and we're launching Xbox apps for our other big property, Smosh. And you know, I think the television lean-back experience is, in a lot of ways, even for millennials, a more pleasant and relaxed experience. And what we're finding already is, you know, one, there's millions of streams a month, but more importantly, the session times are in excess of 30 to 35 minutes. And so a lot of it, I think, has to do with the platform. There's just a more relaxing, I'm settling in for the night to do X that is associated with television, even for people of all ages. And so what we're trying to do is actively program to the platform as much as we are actively programming to the audience.
Well, I look at numbers every day. But can I just point, you know, you said something interesting about CBS and looking. I think they did the same thing and realized that millennials were watching their shows. And I think the testament of Scorpion, which they developed and launched this year, is really an indication that they looked in and felt that that was a segment of the audience that they could absolutely lean on.
I mean, part of me looks at this stuff as a skeptic and says, oh, look, kids are kids. You know, the 13 to 34s of today are no different than when I was in that demo. Their technology habits don't really shape their interests in programming. I mean, Do any of you have that kind of skepticism in you that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what these statistics say, it's about just great programming and kids are kids? Or is it really that more complicated than that?
Well, Tom and I both have teenagers, so I don't know about your
In-house
teenagers,
laboratories.
but when you have teenagers in your house, I have my own focus group of 3 teenagers, and you can't be a skeptic. You see that they're constantly on Instagram in my house, and Vine and Snapchat, and you see how they're watching. They don't watch on the TV. They were watching Netflix, or they're watching Break or Smosh, or in the case of my son. And so I'm face to face on a daily basis, and the challenges of getting them to watch TV.
I think
which I make them do.
it's a good household.
That's telling.
There are, of course, stuff, right, that is really evergreen about being 18 or 20 or whatever it is, right? When you go to college, it's a pretty profound experience, no matter what year you're going to college. You know, it's the thing, as I was thinking about my children and then the data and how it intersects, the thing I find most different about their youth and mine is it is a world that they see and categorize visually, right? Everything is, when we're photographing dessert for like the 800th time, like I will never understand it, and then I feel really old, and they take pictures of everything, and they comment about their world constantly, right? And it is I was snarky with my friend, on the stoop, whatever it was, and they are snarky publicly in a way that is, they feel like they have authorship, and I think that's not just my children, right? We see it in the millions and millions of streams that we're all paying attention to. So some of it is really definitely different, and the platform defines behavior.
But Suzanne, I'm sorry, Keith?
Oh, I think we look at it a little differently, and maybe it's because I don't have teenagers quite yet, but I think there are certain audiences which have historically been underserved in certain ways, and those audiences' needs are being met by digital platforms, and it could be their desire to affiliate with a personality in some cases. It could be their desire to affiliate more with their friends or their social streams, or it could just be that they were 12 and television kind of gave up on 12 because there were no ad dollars. I mean, whatever, I don't know the exact reason, but we look to program to the void. And that void is actually fairly large in aggregate, and we do a really good job of figuring out who they are and how to identify with them overall, and I think it's served us really well historically.
But Dounia, you probably would say that there is no void. I mean, if I look at the stats here, it seems like the TV consumption habits of 12 to 34 are pretty healthy despite their digital savvy.
I think there's always, there's void, there's white space, right? I call it white space, and I think as our media clients look to program and have niche audiences or develop niche audiences or then broaden their niche audiences or do deep dives into the audiences they already have. What they're looking for is that white space, that void, and it's there because there's always a segment of the population, right? Because your 12 to 17-year-olds are not all the same. Your 18 to 34-year-olds are not all the same. You have cultural differences, you have life stage differences. And so the connection points are really important to understand. And I think that's where research is. So I think actually research is vital because there's void, right? And there's white space.
I think it's true. I was going to say, in aggregate, though, when we look at your numbers as they flash by, and I'm not sure I read them quickly enough, but my interpretation, at least, was the amount of time spent on television is largely unchanged as a percentage, right? It's a couple of points, and it's a couple of minutes. And I think, if I remember this correctly, the mobile usage of young people for video went up 4 seconds, I think was the number, 42%.
4 minutes, I think.
Maybe it was 4 minutes, I think. Anyway, the amount of time is rather small still. And so I think that you're absolutely right. There's always underserved audiences, and I think we, in lots of different ways, all of us are trying to find ways to speak to people who are not being spoken to or tell stories that are not being told in short form and in long form and in all sorts of different places. I just think the experience of leaning in and watching something that's entertaining and relaxing and delightful hasn't changed so much. And I think what is a constant among young people is there's a certain, it's important, and maybe it's all of us, right? You like to discover things on your own. You like to find the things that other people don't tell you is part of mainstream culture. And so I think finding that wherever you discover it feels good. I think it's always felt good, and still does.
I had a clarification question, actually, because this is actually just does the TV time include like Netflix and streaming and things like that, or is it traditional? Like
no, so what I defined as TV screen is anything that's coming to your screen, which I think is a huge distinction, right?
Chromecast, Xbox.
Yeah,
right.
so all of that is included.
Right, so I think the important distinction is you could be watching anything. And by the way, like some of the most popular program on Netflix might be from ABC Family or MTV. It's not it wasn't a criticism of that. It's just people are seeking alternatives to the traditional ways of watching television historically, which is also fueling a lot of the similarity in the view time, though. It's the way they're experiencing it is changing a lot. So.
Well, I think it's at least incontestable that digital is on the rise, that it has a special relevance to these younger demos. And so I have to ask, for these TV-first brands like MTV and ABC Family, is there an extra challenge there where it's not even enough to be great programmers on TV? You've got to be relevant on these other devices as well, beyond just, say, Teen Wolf on my smartphone. It's doing other things on these devices.
I would hope we're an audience-first brand and not a TV-first brand, and on our good days we are. And I think we have to think really hard about who we're serving, and if we think about who we're serving, we think about the stories they want to hear, the package with which they want to consume it, and the places they want to find it. And I think we have an awful lot of activity in the various digital places that people find us. We are the most socially tweeted network in television, I think. I'm sure we are contested by everybody here, but it is a thing we all spend a lot of time and energy trying to get our audience to find us in lots of different ways. I know MTV does, and I think it's imperative that we live where they live. It's always been part of what's true, but I don't think we're a TV-first brand. I think we are a brand that seeks to make great stories for a particular audience segment. I'm pretty sure that's what MTV does too. And it is I think TV is a strength, but it's not the only thing that we're going to do, and it can't be the only thing we're going to do.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I think we're looking at ways to, that the audience wants to consume our product, and we've launched the MTV app, and we're open to, sharing, and we know that our audience likes to binge watch. We're also talking a lot about how we can change the viewing on MTV itself and what we can do. And we launched something the past year called our Always On strategy, which we have a division, our Always On division, which is creating short form content that is reacting to same-day events and putting out short-form content on the air all day long. And it's something I love, because it reminds me, this is the bad version and will also date me, but it reminds me of like watching TV as a kid and, and somebody on TV saying like, Merry Christmas or something, and my thinking, oh, wow, they know. I literally remember as a kid watching that, having that feeling like the TV is talking to me. The TV knows that it's Christmas time. Like there's people behind there, and that's the old pathetic interaction. But now the new version of that is reacting to news events and reacting all day long to Miley Cyrus's birthday. Happy birthday, Miley, from MTV. Like, just short form content all day long. So changing the viewing experience on MTV itself, I think, is a way that we're reacting to the audience's changing viewing habits.
I mean, short form is interesting because I think that's at least the conventional wisdom or the assumption is short form is now better for these devices, for these short attention spans that supposedly younger people have. At Nielsen, I mean, do you see much of this increased viability of short form versus long form?
So there are two ways to think about that. There's short form that is, people shooting videos and putting them up, and that maybe entertains you while you're in line somewhere, and you might share it, and you do share it. But I think increasingly there's professionally produced short form content, and that really has a huge place, right? Especially in this generation, because that is interesting, and you're standing in line, but eventually that's what you'll gravitate to, is kind of that professional nature. And even if you're trying to make it look less, edited, there's still very different value. long-form content, it's really about availability and its screen. I think we still, whatever age group you're talking to, best available screen is still always going to be that first choice, right? Now it so happens that certain tablets have become so good and they're big, and that's going to be the best available screen to a teenager in their room. But we're seeing a huge growth in kind of a segment of the population that is watching that long-form content. Mm-hmm. And I think it's because there's more of it. I'm sorry. There's more of it that's available. And the short-form content still has a place. Sorry. But I think professionally produced short-form content.
Keith, what patterns are you seeing across Defy? I mean, you mentioned earlier, it seemed like there's kind of longer running times that are becoming more a part of the Defy viewing experience.
Yeah, I mean, even over the weekend, we released some show called Movie Fights, which is a bunch of people just talking about fights, and it was, I think it's an hour. And I mean, it was, I think last I checked it, over 200,000 plus views in a week. And so I think if you take a step back, our skill set, I actually have a tremendous, despite what it might come across, I think TV is amazing. And I think the people who develop television are amazing. And they've adapted much quicker than I think people give them a lot of credit for in the world of change. I think we've developed and grown up in a different way. I say we developed in the content democracy, where every dollar we earned was only related to our ability to draw a viewer. And so we didn't have this bundling, we didn't have subscription fees. And by the way, we want them, and we're trying to change our world to get them. So I say that out of jealousy, but we never had it. So we developed skill sets, and we never had formats similarly that we were stuck to. We didn't have these artificial, you have to create 22 minutes or you have to create 44 minutes because that's just the way everyone else did. Nor did we have, you have to create comedy or drama or reality. You could just do cool content and tell stories like Tom described. And so I think the skill set that we've developed as an organization is around developing everything else. Like, we can't make a TV show. We can't make 22 minutes or 44 minutes. We really can't. And I don't think we claim to. But for everything else, we've been experimenting and playing. And we are really good at creating 2 minutes. We're really good at creating 8 minutes. We're really good at creating 16 minutes. And it's because the development process behind, and it is absolutely a development process. It is not a couple guys getting in a room and messing around. If you, to your point, if you haven't paid attention, even the stuff that is sort of the cats on skateboard is pretty well edited and developed now in certain ways. It's gotten very sophisticated, and I think it is in a lot of different formats, but that is based, I think, to Tom's point, on what tells the story the best, and less about is 3 minutes what the demographic wants. I think you can tell stories in all sorts of different time frames, and I credit a lot of the big media guys for doing a lot more experimentation around that nowadays.
I do think there's this weird, funny, artificial conversation happening around sort of short form versus long form. You know, I live at the company currently who began with Mickey Mouse's shorts, right? It's what built a very big company. I grew up at MTV, which was built on music videos, which last time I checked they were kind of short form. And at some point they got packaged into long form and lots of good things happened. And I think there have always been short form and long form, and I think there will always be short form and long form, and I think some of the time distances or differences are really silly, and it's great to find something that's an 8-minute story that should be an 8-minute story, but I think we all who tell stories are going to find the right size bucket to put it in. And you know, we happen to buy this company called Maker at Disney, and so they spend a lot of time doing a lot of short form that we are trying to find ways to get into our ecosystem, and it's really interesting trying to find out kind of what does blow up to the big screen and feel right, and what doesn't, and some stuff does, and it will, and you know, we're all gonna have a good time in the back and forth.
Blows up a lot.
Yeah, it does. Things blowing up blows up a lot too. But anyway.
Well, I think this would be a good opportunity to start to look at some of your respective programming. So Tom, why don't we start with you, and we're gonna show a quick reel of what's going on at ABC Family.
Follow him. No, you follow him. I have to change my underwear.
What are you so scared of?
Where do I start? I want to be with you, and I don't want to wait. Show me.
Make the bounce!
I got this.
Atta girl.
This is crazy. Crazy around here works on a sliding scale.
Take off your mask! Now! Now! I knew this was gonna happen.
Don't tell anyone.
Best day ever!
Come in!
Dude, this is not a good look on you coming or going.
Was there any short form content in that reel? That looked like a lot of long form.
That was a lot of long form.
Okay, that's allowed though.
Thank you for that.
Why don't we take a look as well at another long form specialist that does some short form too, MTV.
Attention seniors, do you find yourself friendless and alienated from everyone? Come to the club room in 5 minutes to find out how to stop being awful people. Mandatory.
So you bit him? Yeah. And you kidnapped him? Yeah. And brought him here? I panicked. You know, as a reminder, this is why I always come up with the plans. Your plans suck. I know.
I want to know how you would react if you had been bitten by a werewolf.
I don't think I would even be that mad. You know what I mean? Are we early? Were you guys having dinner?
The table is for my parents.
Hi, Maddie. Do you like the table Jenna set up for you two? She spent all day cooking.
Boys are like puppies. You have to teach them no.
Exes shouldn't be here.
Welcome to the most ambitious matchmaking experiment ever attempted. 20 singles, and you're here because you all have one thing in common. You suck at relationships. This is Are You the One?
Okay, warm-ups are over. Now, need a brave volunteer to help demonstrate some basic fighting holds with me. Any takers?
Ride's over, you're coming with us.
When you were 3 years old, you were abducted. The woman you think is your mother is not your mother. Carter Stevens is not your real name.
My catfish is not romantic in nature. However, it still haunts me to this day. This girl was really clever and detailed in her deceit.
Something's not right. I don't know what it is.
More than 85,000 tweets since the start of the episode, so it's time to bring out the person who started all of this drama.
Yeah, my parents are divorced. I'm an American. My dad was like, this is my girlfriend. I'd be like, what? You like girls?
And away we go! Hell yeah!
Yes!
Well, we're having a baby. I wouldn't mind being married before the baby comes. You could go to the courthouse and marry me.
I'm not doing it. It's not what I want to do.
No! What do you mean you want to quit? This is the final. You don't quit in the final.
I'm gonna die.
You're not going to die.
I can't.
Zach, I'll help you.
I can't!
You always cut away before the ambulance comes.
I'm Todrick, and performing is my life.
Oh, yes.
I started making my own songs, dances, flash mobs. I wonder if this security guard realizes he's about to be the next big thing on YouTube.
Yo, it's me, Ja Rule.
I don't know Ja Rule. That's Dad. So today is the day that we finally get to prank my dad. We're going to pretend that George is my boyfriend.
That's my baby girl.
That's my baby girl, too.
Hey, are you trying to get killed in my house? Like, you trying to send me back to jail?
Through the forest and the trees! Bye-bye!
And last but not least, Defy Media.
Is this for TV?
Yes. Is the internet TV?
Is this internet?
Yes.
it be for burgers? Would you wax me?
Yes. Are you serious?
Get it in your face!
Oh my God, I died.
Very clever thing to do.
She did it. She said it.
I think I should like.
Hadouken! Oh, damn!
See that card? That's your card.
Very cool. So the two-part question that comes as I watch this, when you see, say, what Defy is doing, and there doesn't seem to be any scripted programming there, it is, I think fair to say, is more low cost than what the, sort of very scripted heavy content that may be going on at MTV, ABC Family, yet the audiences that they're putting together at Defy are approaching comparability with what's going on at a cable net. So is there a temptation on the part of TV networks to see whether they can amass audiences at the kind of budgets that Defy is doing? And conversely, Keith, do you look at what's going on the scripted side and say, I got to make my way up the food chain?
Yeah, I mean, just to, not to denigrate the question, a lot of that stuff was scripted, though.
But was it at cost?
Yeah, and it was pretty expensive to make. And it was, well, I mean, the reality is, like, I think I used to joke, but 10 years ago or 8 years ago, it was like $25 was our budget, and that included pizza. But now things are, some of that stuff was cheap, don't get me wrong, but some of it's real budget. And
yeah, Andy.
Yeah.
Wow. Say it again. Something tells me, despite the fact that it is scripted.
The range is hundreds to thousands or tens, but it's not. It's different at scale for sure. But some of it is scripted. Smosh, for example, a lot of that is scripted. It's actually, people say nothing on the internet is scripted. Smosh is very large and is probably the largest scripted comedy in that audience segment almost, I think. And so, there's a lot of scripted stuff, but we do look upstream and we think we got to script more. And to your question, I think we have to spend more for certain things, and we have to develop differently in some cases. We absolutely look at it that way.
And
we have shows on our network that cost $170,000 an episode, and we have shows on our network that cost $2 million an episode, and everything in between.
Is 170 cheap?
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Very.
That's 3 years from now. I'm just kidding.
Well, but Keith, in all honesty, do you spend six figures on any program?
I mean, yeah, not on any one show, but this on the way over here, we approved, or before I came here, we approved 6 episodes for $120,000. So I don't know how long those episodes are going to be, but they're not going to be 1 minute. They'll probably be 10, 12-minute episodes. So whatever that goes out to. But we are greenlighting programs in excess of $500,000 now, somewhat regularly, yeah.
Right.
Are any of your shoots union?
Some are by necessity, yeah. Well, and I'm in the SAG building, so by definition, I can't get away with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me put a finer point on the question, though, for you, Tom. Yeah. I mean, for putting aside Defy, we look at what's on YouTube nowadays, and there is a new breed of content where it is simply, homegrown talent talking to the cameras in their bedroom, amassing very significant audiences, and doing it at a fraction of the cost of, say, Pretty Little Liars. Does that bother you at all?
I'm going to keep Pretty Little Liars.
Why not?
Yeah,
it's doing well.
Okay. I think Maker does 9 billion video views a month, and we have a lot of active conversation with them about how we're going to cooperate. But on whatever, I'm not going to disclose their economics, but our revenue is a lot healthier than their revenue in a different way, right? So I think that the goal isn't to necessarily figure out how we all make less money. I think it's to try to figure out how you find the right people and amass the right economic package around it in order to be in business. And so far, it's a good business. And I think we're going to try to keep it going for a little bit longer. I think, you know, if my children are 14 to 22, I think I learned yesterday that 22-year-olds are the largest segment of people in our country. So my son is, you know, he's going to be in good shape. He's going to be the most marketed to person in the entire United States for the rest of his life. But they watch everything. They play with everything. They like to discover everything. But they're watching television in all sorts of different buckets. They're very intrigued by short and long, and they want to talk about it on all the different platforms. I think it's kind of a false question. Do we want to be able to find an audience in lots of different places for less money? Yeah, that'd be nice if it worked, but I think we still have to figure out how to package it in a way we can have a business, and so far, that seems to be a little bit like the way we're doing it now.
Okay. Though I think it's an honest question.
I think the views number is a little tricky, right? And honestly, the problem with digital is you can make, these view numbers are like extensive. I got 2 trillion views, I got 40 trillion views. I think what we decided to focus on as a company a few years ago is very much in line with the model I think that these guys helped, you know, develop and create, which is what's the IP that you're creating and how valuable is that specific IP? Because not every view is created equal. And a lot of the people who are doing these wonderful views in front of the cameras on YouTube, Andrew, are really talented, and it's well produced, and they get less views, and they do better than some of the people who get a lot of views. And it's not marketable, it's not economic. And so when we look at ourselves as a company, it's less about do we do 10 billion views, and do we do views around very specific brands that are marketable, that we can take from one platform to the other platform, to the next platform, that we can create a game around, that we can sell around, that there's merchandise, that there's long-term opportunities to build around. And so I think it's less about the views, and is digital a way of developing quality intellectual property, and you can develop it potentially at a cheaper price point and leverage it across a lot of different places. And I think you can invest a lot in a TV program, and it can be worth a lot, and you can invest in digital, and it can be a lot. And I think that's the biggest change to the ecosystem is you might not need to spend X dollars to develop something that is really, really valuable intellectual property, and it's less about the exact view counts themselves.
I think it's 100% true. The person you should really be talking to is at the end of the row, right? Part of the biggest issue in our collective lives is the measurement system for how people consume is not really very consistent. And so it would be really great to track. If we had a Pretty Little Liars viewer and they're watching on television or they're watching on their phone, it shouldn't be different in terms of the way we deliver an ad message or how we can find a way to make that make sense in view counts. But it's totally different at the moment, and that's a work in progress. And if this feels like eventually that's going to smooth a lot of the way that this world works.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, measurement leads to monetization, right? Because there's accountability. And some companies who don't like to be measured, eventually that's not a very good long-term model.
It's actually not entirely true though, right? Because I don't watch a lot of cable companies, but I pay for them. So by cable, I watch 5 cable things, but I pay for 180, right? So it's not entirely true in the traditional media ecosystem,
Or you pay
right?
for the 5.
Well,
it depends how much you pay.
But I don't know.
You pay.
That's the question of the day with the HBO Go, right? But measurement doesn't always lead to monetization.
No, but it leads to the understanding of monetization, right? So if you don't have measurement and you don't know who's watching, where, when, for how long, and the other part of actually measuring is, you know, engagement. Engagement as a metric is huge, and I think to your point earlier that, you know, not all content is created equal and not all views are created equal. I think engagement will play a huge factor in that, and so that's a piece of the pie. In terms of digital measurement, that's certainly something that is, you know, front and center at our company to really have a comprehensive measurement so that when you're looking at Pretty Little Liars, when you're looking at Teen Wolf, when you're looking at, you know, Smash, you can look at it across all the properties and all the platforms and all the devices it resides on, and you can make informed decision. I don't think it's one message fits all the different devices, because they're not going to reside in the same way, and the engagement is going to be different whether you have a lean in or lean out experience with content. But certainly, I mean, measurement is critical, and we're getting there. I think, you know, we are getting there.
Well, if there's any questions from you in the audience, just raise your hand and we'll get to a mic. In the meantime, I'm going to ask, oh, we got one right there, okay.
Talking about engagement, the difference between eyeballs and engagement, isn't that the engagement is what the value is in figuring out what the value of that program is? You can have 10 million, you know, viewers of something, but if only 500 of them are actually engaged in buying something.
Right. I think engagement leads to a different metric for ROI, right? So, you know, that's all part of the negotiation around media. So you have on the one hand, you know, viewers, eyeballs, you know, consumers, and on the other hand, you have, you know, what's kind of the path to purchase, the viewing to purchase. And I think engagement plays a really vital role in kind of intersecting. So it's not one or the other, I think they live together.
It's funny, I like the smell test, by the way. The smell test is what, like, you know why I think the MTV Movie Awards are amazing? Because everyone talks about them, and I don't know how you measure engagement, but I know that every single person talks about them. All our websites cover them. The MTV Movie Awards must be pretty relevant, right? And Pretty Little Liars, perfect example. Like, pretty relevant, right? Like, I mean, you hear about it. They're on the cover of I don't know how relevant magazines are, but they're on the cover of all of them, which must mean something. And I feel like that, so we look at the success of our brands. It's when people are talking about them, how engaged are they? It's so hard to measure. Nielsen does a great job. I don't know, Twitter, everyone measures a different way. When I hear someone in In-N-Out talking about one of our shows in line in Westwood, like, that's how I know that we're relevant, because people do stuff, and that's how I know it's engaged. And I wish there was a way to quantify that, and I know Nielsen's working on all the ways to package together all these things, but that's once that measurement exists and you can really put the dollars against the brands that people care about innately, is when things are going to be really amazing.
And there are actually some very good measures for engagement, right? There are some very good measures for engagement. So I think you'd find that.
Let's go to the next question. In front.
Thank you. So I'm 30 years old. I'm right in the perfect, age.
I thought you were 22, so great.
Thank you. Thank you. And this has been fascinating to learn basically how you guys have analyzed me and my generation, if you will, and to learn about how and what mediums we're using. But one thing I would love to talk more about, or even hear more about, is why. And I think it's a pretty simple explanation. If you look at the any generation, not just this generation, and then the parallel, technological advances that they're growing up with, it explains easily as to what we're interested in. So, when I was 14, I think, what was the hot new phone? It was the Razor. The Razor. The Razor. So the smartphone became something I and the rest of my generation was obsessed with growing up, and now is one of our primary tools for getting information. So as you look at the generations to come, it's fascinating. Tablets are going to be one thing. Interactive TV is the next big thing, in my opinion. It's pretty simple as to why we're interested in specific things. The research backs it up, but that's, I think, something we should look at more, is whatever advances are going on with technology at the time for a generation. And then one other thing, if I could mention.
I think to that point, please. I mean, we look at, and we actually check Amazon bestsellers on electronics a lot to see. And if you look, I think 10 of the top 12 are ways to watch a smart TV. And I mean, I'd love to say it's because they really want to watch Smosh, and I think X% do. But I also think a lot of them want to watch Pretty Little Liars, and a lot of them want to binge watch, shows you guys have developed. I just think the technology is enabling people to have choice, and choice is really good. And especially for people in the media industry who never, who are limited in the set of people they could sell to or their choices before.
But by 30, we're done with you. We have a median age of 23. Yeah. In order for me to keep the median age 23, what do I have to do? I have to target young.
You
Because I
still have to
know,
look at the advances of technology happening for those specific
I
ages.
know you'll grow up with the shows that you found, and you'll stay with them until, you know, so a show like Teen Mom, that's an older skewing show on our network. It's probably the oldest skewing show on our network. It's 28 for that particular show because they've grown up with it. But for me to stay young, which is a goal for MTV, I have to keep targeting and developing shows like Faking It, which bring in teenagers.
Well, content is a different story. I was talking about specific mediums that content is distributed through. So talking about the technology, so whether it be smartphones, you know, tablets, computers, just really looking at what ages within each of these generations are really focused on.
We only have 5 minutes left, so we're going to try to get some more questions in. Right behind you.
I'm wondering how the +3s and the migration across all these platforms has impacted the two cable broadcasters for promotion for your programming. How are you letting viewers know that Faking It's back for a new season, or that you have, you know, Pretty Little Liars? Like, do you have to adjust your promotion strategy for the +3s and the mobile platforms?
Well, we've adjusted promotion strategy and created more short-form promotion, but I don't think we've done it because of the +3. You know, we've certainly adjusted scheduling because of the +3, and the +3 is very meaningful to our audience. By the way, a show like Finding Carter that we premiered this year and we're bringing back for a second season, a new drama. That show, +3, was averaging +73%, and higher in several episodes, +100%. I mean, remarkable difference and impact on the ratings. So it does affect the way we schedule and offer the shows online to watch, but promotion, we're looking at promotion in all kinds of new ways, and for that show in particular, we hired Viners to create original vines. They just had to mention Finding Carter. That was the only thing we asked them to do, and went to sort of the top 10 Viners, and we found that made a big impact.
I think similar, for us, the dramas all do huge numbers in DVRs, and I think it's, especially if they're serialized, right, people come back and come back. So if you're getting season 2, you just have to tell them it's on, right? They've already made a commitment, they're in it, it's part of their lives. If you're introducing it, we market. You know, we spend some money, we spend a lot of time in social marketing, right? Because it's really where our audience is talking to each other, they share like crazy, and that's very helpful, and sometimes we can get one show to market another, and that's awfully nice and efficient way to do it too. But no, for us, that's, I think, honestly, less about promotion, more in how we package for sales.
You know, our audience is incredibly media savvy. And they really understand all of this. They understand what's going on. We had a kid blog who started watching Finding Carter early and had a blog and blogged. Please, everybody, make sure you watch within the +3 because that's something that MTV can monetize. Will help them pick up the show for a second season. And this was a kid. You know,
His dad was in sales.
right, exactly. And interestingly, we also find with our audience, the feedback is that this is how media savvy they are. They will wait till they hear about a season 2 pickup, and then they'll go back and binge watch the rest of season 1, catch up on it, and then watch season 2, or not even watch season 1 until season 2 has been announced, and then say, all right, great, you're on, I'm in. And then we find that there's a new engagement, which I find fascinating.
Any more questions?
This question is really more for Susanne and Tom. Do you guys look at YouTube talent as a viable talent pool for programming? As part 1 and part 2, Tom, can you reveal who A is?
Part 2, no, right? Sorry. In part 1, yeah. I mean, we're actively working with a whole bunch of folks who we hope can either be guest stars, make their own stars, and there's a variety of different ways we're trying to get YouTube talent into our air, and I think it's probably true for everybody on television at this point.
Any talent. I'm interested in any talent, anywhere, under the rug, anywhere. I can find them. Doesn't matter what they're on.
The rug,
yeah.
It's, you know, it's such an obvious comment, but it's Defy and lots of other places are exposing all of us to so many more people because there's only so many human beings you can see in any one moment. So it's also a great way for us all just to find more folks, and it's great. Yeah, it's actually a very vivid and interesting way to find people.
Okay. Any more questions?
I guess I just have a comment, especially related to what Disney is doing with Maker. You know, I find it interesting that we live in this model and we try, you know, we buy these companies that are appealing to a very young demographic, but yet we try to force out of that demographic something that feels traditional to us because we know what it is. And I spent the past 3 days at Digital Hollywood kind of hearing the same thing repeated day after day, which was, you know, content is king. And make sure that you provide the content across. I mean, to me, I look at the TVs and I just think it's just a vehicle through which I can watch whatever I want at any point in time. And I have 3-year-old twins who sit in front of my television watching my iPad and watching and consuming their media that way. So, you know, from the perspective of the future, you know, I'm in television myself. I think of it from the perspective of let's not try to force these kids into something we're very familiar with because it matches a model. We have to be thinking a little bit out of the box.
Yeah, it's funny. The Maker audience is really similar to our audience. It's really similar to their audience statistically. And so I think I hope we're not forcing, right? I think what they're excited about, the folks at Maker, whether it's their own makers or the people who work in the company, what we're excited about is the potential for the merging of storytelling, I think, between short and long and across screens. That's an opportunity that's fun, and it's an interesting way for them to take on different creative challenges.
I think Pretty Little Liars is a great example. I actually love that show. I got addicted to it because I knew folks there, and they told me about it, and I watched it, and I binged on it. And to your point, I think many people don't watch the second season unless they know the first season's been renewed. You know? So, but I want to watch it when I want to watch it and how I want to watch it. And I'm not a 30-year-old.
I think we got time.
I wonder how much of that audience is there as well.
We've got time for one last question in the back.
I'm just curious, you were talking about how you're trying to increase the audiences, and if some people are going back to watch the first season before they go to the season 2, do you find that Netflix or any other online streaming content helps get that content from online back to watching your actual TV shows or being able to watch TV?
Yes, absolutely. We did a deal with Awkward and Netflix where we ran seasons 1, 2, 3 on Netflix just for a period of a few months leading up to season 4. And that was great. It was win-win. It was great for Netflix and it was great for us.
Yeah, I think we all went in with some trepidation, wondering. And for the most part, we have found great support for our shows, and just about every show we have is on there. So yeah, it's been a good thing.
And I'll just add, I've worked with a couple of media companies who have tested putting content out right before the premiere, and then, you know, following within our panels exactly those same people, and then if they happen to be on TV. And there's a seamless interaction. So the people who watched the first telecast online then went either to the VOD platform or to the live, you know, live or time-shifted on television. And so to the point of when, where, how I want, if the content is there and it's distributed wherever you want to put it, people will find it. And then as long as you can measure it, then you find a way to monetize it. And I think that's the circle.
I don't like VOD with commercials.
I hate it.
Right? Isn't that the worst?
Yeah, Hulu drives me crazy.
VOD with commercials stinks.
So you're going to reach out to the cable distributors?
That's why you have DVRs.
Exactly.
I mean, you can't fast forward for a lot.
It is a hard life.
DVRs
Right.
you can.
Right.
DVRs you
Right.
can.
DVRs you can. DVRs you can.
Yeah.
Teenagers probably used to, but I have 3-year-olds who say, every time a commercial comes on, they say, oh no.
Right.
Because they think the world has stopped because a commercial is
Right.
VOD teaches you very quickly to use your DVR, though.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like one time of a VOD pain, and you're like, all right.
But I
remember
love
to-
advertisers. Just want to make that distinction.
That's what we thought you were saying, right?
Well, on that tragic note, how about a hand for our panelists?